I want to kind of play a game.
Okay.
I'm hoping you're down for it.
Yeah.
The idea is that I'm going to share a couple prompts, and these are going to be like different orthodontists who have scenarios of where they want to place ads and run campaigns, and you're going to tell me where they should be spending their money and how they should be focusing their ads.
Okay.
Does that sound good?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right.
Welcome to the Neon Buzz, where we offer marketing advice for oral, aesthetic, and other elective healthcare professionals. Sit back and relax while we share our digital marketing secrets to help you grow your practice.
Welcome back to the Neon Buzz. Today we're going to talk about a really hot topic, and it is ad strategy. We're going to be covering Google ads, Meta ads, the differences between the two, and which ones you should be using for your practice. Welcome on the show, Garrett.
Yeah, it's good to be here.
Yeah, we're so happy to have you. Garrett is our digital ad strategist, and just tell us a little bit about what you do day to day.
So my official title is digital ad strategist. It can be a bit misleading because I get people often thinking I'm an expert in Google ads and Meta ads, and really I'm just the Meta ads person here. So I focus exclusively on Meta ads for all our clients. I learn a little bit about Google ads, but I'm not quite an expert in those. So I'm going to appreciate some of your perspective on that today. But hopefully I can bring enough perspective on the Meta ads to kind of keep things interesting.
Yeah, I definitely think so. I think it's going to be an interesting conversation, and I think there's a ton to talk about when it comes to Google and Meta ads. So we're only going to be scratching the surface. And the idea is that we're going to give some tips, tricks, things that you can do today, but also kind of an overview of how they work. So that whenever you're creating a strategy or talking with your agency, it kind of makes a little bit more sense. So when we are talking about Google versus Meta ads, we were discussing kind of a cool metaphor because you let me know the other day that they're building a Buc-ee's out there by you.
Yeah, they are. So there's going to be a Buc-ee's kind of near where I'm living now. So very excited for that because I love Buc-ee's. And if you don't know what Buc-ee's is, it's like a superstore gas station with lots of really good food. I have delicious brisket sandwiches. I love their thick sliced brisket. But not to talk too much about what they do. It's just that's generally what Buc-ee's is. And it's a really fun place. You'll see like little beavers. It's their kind of mascot. It's kind of fun.
It is. And it's sweeping the South. Sweeping the country, really. I think it's probably going to be everywhere pretty soon. But it's really cool. And it got me thinking because Buc-ee's has some of the coolest, most eye-catching billboards. I always notice them when I'm on a road trip. And it always makes me immediately want to go there. Which you might wonder, we're talking about Buc-ee's, how do you attach that to ads? It kind of makes a really good analogy because when you're driving down the road and you're looking at billboards, it's very similar to how you might interact with Meta or Google ads online. So do you want to kind of share a little bit more about that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So the way I kind of look at it, it goes into kind of the intent a little bit. So say you're driving down the road and you're not really low on gas, you're not really looking for anything, you're just driving down and you see a Buc-ee's sign and it kind of intrigues you. That's kind of how Meta ads work. You're not specifically looking for something, you're not in that kind of consideration phase, you just happen to see something that piques your interest. So kind of an eye-catching billboard for Buc-ee's, very similar to what you'd want to do on Meta ads. You would kind of grab someone's attention. And when we're talking Meta ads, to give you the context, that would be ads that run both on Facebook, ads that run on Instagram. So scrolling through Instagram Reels, you're not really looking for something in terms of an ad, at least.
Okay.
You're looking for just kind of entertaining content, and you happen to see something that might trigger your interest.
Okay.
That's kind of how the Meta ads would work, kind of in relation to that Buc-ee's billboard.
So you're not, in other words, with the Buc-ee's analogy, you're not driving down the road looking for a gas station thinking you need snacks.
Exactly.
You just happen to see it and you're like, that's really cool, I'm going to go there.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then I kind of see Google ads being a little bit different. You're running low on gas, maybe you're really hungry, you're looking for snacks, and then you end up seeing a Buc-ee's billboard that's like, come get your beaver nuggets, which is a really famous thing at Buc-ee's.
Yeah, look them up.
Look up beaver nuggets if you haven't ever done them. They're delicious. But you're like, ooh, that would be great. I'm really hungry. That'd be a great snack. I need to get gas anyway. So you're actively searching for something and you happen to see a billboard that met what you were considering doing. You're like, that's exactly what I need. I'm going to go stop at Buc-ee's now.
As opposed to like Love's or Shell,
Exactly.
that they know that's there.
Exactly.
But they want to go to Buc-ee's because they saw the billboard.
Exactly. And it's all about that kind of intent from the audience. You're driving, you didn't really have an intent to go and get to a gas station, but you saw it and then you started considering it. That's kind of like the meta side versus you were looking actively for one. And then you saw that ad, that billboard that drew you in. That's kind of like the Google side.
Okay, and it kind of touches on all the stages of the buyer journey, right? Yeah. So we're going to talk about awareness, consideration, and decision. The awareness side leans more meta, and the consideration and decision leads more Google. Yeah. And you're going to kind of see that theme pop up throughout today's conversation. Absolutely. We've kind of talked about intent. What platforms do these show up on?
So for the meta side, I've kind of mentioned it already. Meta encompasses both Instagram and Facebook. So we often have a lot of confusion. We'll interchangeably, because Facebook kind of changing some of their branding and stuff, we'll have confusion about what meta ads are, if they're only on Facebook, because that's what they used to be, was Facebook ads. And those terms are used interchangeably, but ads on Meta are generally going to both Facebook and Instagram audiences. So you'd see them in your feed on Facebook. You could see them pop into Reels and Stories on Instagram. They have a kind of third area they can hit, but not as much in Audience Network. That's other sites, other apps. But the main areas you're going to see ads from Meta are on Instagram and on Facebook.
Okay. And so then for Google Ads, you're going to see Google Ads anywhere that, in Google's network. So, of course, when people are searching, you'll see that in their searches. You can see it in the local maps pack, and even YouTube, because Google now owns YouTube. So they also have kind of a sprawl across the internet where you're going to see it, but it's going to be more search focused. They do have some display elements, but by and large, it's going to be more search focused for Google Ads. But in terms of messaging, what do you recommend on Meta versus Google?
So I think when it kind of goes back to that intent, right? When you're trying to get someone's attention on social media, which is really hard to do, because especially when you're talking about ads specifically, it's hard to get people's attention. So you're going to want something that stands out very heavily. You're wanting good visuals, you're wanting excellent copy, you're wanting to grab people's attention. Something that's creative is very helpful on Meta platforms.
Okay.
So that's a key for Meta, is to make sure your creative is interesting. You've got to be interested. Think of it like social media, non-paid social media. To get people's attention, you've got to be interesting. And so you want to grab that attention, and you've got to do it quickly too.
Okay.
Whereas, you could correct me if I'm wrong, I think on Google what we're looking at is more of clear and concise, right?
Yeah,
we're looking at something that's getting straight to the point, especially when you're talking search. You're having someone search for something specific, so they need that information quick and efficiently, right?
You don't want to have to make them look or hunt or decipher a code. It's just not necessarily the place to be creative. That being said, you might want to throw in something that makes you stand out a little bit. So for, say you offer light force braces. You might have a Google ad that says something like, orthodontic treatment for all ages, get light force here. Or you could do something more so like clear braces if you want to be a little bit more like colloquial. But
basically, you're still being very clear and concise, but maybe hitting just a little bit of a point of where you're kind of different from competition. Like, here's a service we offer that others don't offer that you can get here.
So that when you're looking at these digital billboards, you've got 3 lined up in a row, and the person's going to click on, they're all orthodontists. What's the thing that differentiates them? It might be something really small. But it's still going to be clear and concise and nothing super creative.
That makes sense.
So let's get into the question everybody wants to know, budget. Because I think there's a lot here that's like, you could do it a bunch of different ways. You could spend any number of ways, and that kind of goes into the strategy. But what do we recommend typically for this industry?
Yeah, and I like that you mentioned that it does depend on what your goals are. It depends on what your budgeting is, overall marketing budget for your organization, for your orthodontic practice, especially when we're thinking about what a lot of our clients are, which is in orthodontics. When you're thinking of that, we generally recommend about $10 a day on Meta for brand awareness type ads. So those just happen to catch them kind of digital billboard ads. That's generally what we recommend. Now, you can play with that. If your budget's tighter, you can go a little bit lower. If you want to spend more, you can certainly spend more. We have people who spend a lot more on those types of ads, and that's perfectly fine too, and you'll see a lot more performance. But that $10 a day is our general recommendation, kind of a sweet spot between how much you're spending and the performance you get in return for that.
When we're looking at how well these ads are performing, are we looking for leads directly? Are we looking for impressions? What's the goal?
So when we're talking a brand awareness ad, particularly on Meta, what we're going to be tracking is mostly clicks and impressions and some stats associated with those as well. So you're looking for clicks to your website, so people are coming, they're interested enough in the ad to click through and go to your website. So that click-through rate is also very helpful to see. And then just the total number of eyes you're seeing on it, those impressions, that kind of repetitive impression that people can see. Because impressions isn't just one person to one. It could be some people seeing it multiple times, which is a good thing too, especially when you're talking brand awareness, keeping your brand top of mind among people. So that's how we would look at performance, and that recommendation, $10 a day, does a pretty good job with both of those stats, in general at least.
Okay.
But there's a whole other side on Meta as well, where you can there's a lot of different styles of ads you can do. We mostly do those kind of brand awareness style ads, but then we also have lead ads that we've been doing as well on Meta. Those you want to spend a little bit more, probably about $20 a day is what we've seen work pretty well. Of course, that depends on your budget, your goals. You can spend more than that, certainly. Spending less than that could work in a specific specific circumstances. That could work, but generally about $20 a day is what we've found has been working pretty well. Of course, a lot of differences that can contribute to whether that works well. If you want to spend more, I'm sure that will end up being more for you, more leads for you on those ads.
Sure, and this can kind of, come to a case-by-case basis, right?
Exactly.
Because there's a lot of variables that go into, who needs to spend what and where. So that's just a good asterisk to throw in there. But a theme that's going to kind of pop up throughout ad spend is going to be you're going to spend a little bit less when it comes to brand awareness, but you're going to cast a wider net. And then you're going to spend a little bit more when it comes to, these higher lead ads, like on Meta or on Google. But you're going to get higher quality leads who are, more ready to start treatment.
You're hitting them in that, like what you said, that consideration stage with those kinds of ads, right?
Right. So there's the give and the take there, I think. And so when it comes to Google ads, what are we expecting to spend there?
From what I understand, it's a bit more. So it's a bit more than on Meta's platforms. I believe search is we generally start about $25 a day on search, just because Google search is pretty highly competitive too.
It is.
So you've got to spend more money in order to actually start showing up and do well on Google search compared to Meta. So you're going to spend a little bit more. It's not a ton more, granted, but you are going to have to do a bit more, give a bit more money to Google ads.
To get more in,
Exactly.
And then that's really an important distinction to make. Okay, so when it comes to, there's a lot of changes happening, especially in terms of search and Google, and a lot of it has to do with AI. And one of the questions I know that I've had is, how are ads going to change in relation to these new developments?
I think there's a lot of ways that they're already changing, right?
Okay.
On Meta, there's a lot of kind of AI algorithm stuff working in the background. You can kind of do some automated placements, so it picks and chooses where to run ads across Instagram, across Facebook, and it can also kind of pick, if you put multiple pieces of creative in there, for example, say you have a couple graphics, a few text options, you can allow Meta's kind of algorithm in the background decide what's going to connect best, what combination of graphics, copy, headlines will work best for specific audiences. So that's very helpful, and we've been using that a lot because it just works really well.
Well, and the same on the Google side, as I think what we've been leaning to is Performance Max campaigns. And they do the same thing. They take a combination, a dynamic display of different headlines, different body copy, and then they switch it up and put it on different platforms to see which, what works best when it's combined with what and where.
Yeah.
But it's doing all of that in the background.
Yeah.
There's a lot of optimization that, we have to do behind the scenes to make sure that's flowing the best.
Yeah.
But it's running a lot of this on its own, which is really neat to give to kind of maximize the return.
Yeah, and that's super helpful, especially like on the Meta side. You don't have to worry about figuring out what to do in every single placement across both platforms, because if you're having to do that, just building one kind of ad set is going to take a lot of time, a lot of effort, and probably won't work as well, because Meta is pretty smart, and then they can decide what works well in different areas and optimize it for those different areas, so you don't have to do as much of the work on the back end, which is very helpful. I've also noticed on Meta's side, there's some other AI tools kind of coming in. When you put in captions for your ads, the kind of on Facebook headlines for your ads, they'll oftentimes offer some alternative AI copy that it writes,
Okay.
kind of like ChatGPT or anything like that kind of system. So it'll give you some different AI options there too, which is nice and helpful. You can get some new ideas, maybe something you hadn't thought of doing there, especially if you're setting them up yourself and you're kind of like a solo team having to do all of your marketing. That would be really hard to come up with a bunch of different copy every time you wanted to run an ad, right?
Right, and it takes a lot of copy to do this.
Yeah.
Because again, you're entering in, even on Google, you're entering in 15 different headlines, maybe 30 different sub headlines, and you're mixing them up to see what works best. So
exactly, and all that prefacing, and you'll appreciate this too, while that can be helpful, it's still not as good as having a copywriter who can kind of personalize, make sure that it works really well and speaks to your brand as well. But it can be kind of helpful supplement if you're kind of struggling to come up with some stuff.
Right, yeah. I'm thinking for like a small local business that might be starting up. But then as you get bigger and as you want to improve your brand awareness ads and really be eye-catching, that's where you're going to need somebody, professional to step in and do something like that. Okay, so I want to kind of play a game.
Okay.
I'm hoping you're down for it.
Yeah.
The idea is that I'm going to share a couple prompts. And these are going to be like different orthodontists who have scenarios of where they want to place ads and run campaigns. And you're going to tell me where they should be spending their money and how they should be focusing their ads.
Okay.
Does that sound good?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Smile Orthodontics just opened a new location in a neighboring town. They want to create an ad campaign to generate brand awareness in the new area, and they have a limited budget. Which type of ads should they choose?
So with a limited budget, I would focus more on the Google side. Right?
Okay.
You're opening a new practice, a new location. You want to show up in searches for orthodontics in that location. So your targeting for zip codes is going to be really crucial here. You want to hit those areas really nicely. You know your audience, know what demographics you're hitting, and you know what zip codes, towns you're trying to target. You want to hit those. But the Google search, Google Maps would probably be your key. If you had enough budget, Meta would be nice, but Google's going to probably be your key on that.
Okay, that's great to know. All right, moving on. It's the dog days of summer, and new patient starts are down at Crown Pediatric Dentistry and Orthodontics.
Okay.
They want to kick off an ad campaign to get more teen starts before the school year. How should they prioritize their ads?
Okay, so we're kind of thinking, that one's one that you almost want to split it a little bit.
Okay.
So you want to have Google, you want to have Meta, because you're kind of hitting a more generalized audience. You're still very focused, and you still want to hit, when you're talking teens, you're more so targeting their parents, their moms, right? You're trying to hit the people who are the decision makers. You can do that on both Meta and Google. That's more of a generalized campaign, so it's going to hit both audiences, people actively searching, people not necessarily actively searching, but open for the ideas when they're on social media. So I think that one's more of a split kind of strategy. You're going to hit a little bit of both.
Sure, that makes sense, especially because, new patient teens specifically are the bread and butter of, most orthodontic practices.
Absolutely,
so you want to you really follow them through the buyer journey from awareness to the decision phase.
Absolutely.
Okay, last one.
Okay.
Sparkle Orthodontics is looking to attract more adult patients. To do so, they're offering clear aligner promotions for brides before their wedding. How can they create an ad strategy that generates leads?
So that one, the key point there is you're hitting someone really specific and maybe even doing a promo with that, like some kind of promotion discount with that. So that one I would think would work best on Meta.
Okay.
You could do some on Google, but I think Meta is where your key is going to be, because when you're talking brides, you're thinking very visually. People aren't necessarily going to be doing like Google searches for orthodontics for brides,
like
right?
Bridal orthodontics
They're not
is
going to be
definitely not a
searching
keyword.
that. So they're going to be searching ortho more broadly anyway. So I don't think it really helps as much there. Whereas if they're scrolling through Reels and they see an ad for orthodontics for brides, that's going to really speak to them very well, grab their attention very quick. So I think that works best in a meta setting.
Okay.
Again, targeting key there. You're going to want to make sure you're hitting your right ages, your right demographics, and you're even going to want to consider timing on those. So leading into like a wedding season would be very helpful for that too.
Yeah, I think that there's a note here. Is I think sometimes there might be the tendency with other agencies maybe to cast a really wide net in terms of targeting and to just throw ads out there and try to get anybody in.
Yeah.
But I think it's important specifically for these high-end services to be able to up the lead quality, which means toning down and paring down who you are focusing on.
Exactly. You don't want to get too specific either. I get that. But if you're doing just a very wide net, you're going to kind of waste a lot of your budget, right? So you want to tone it down, narrow down that audience just enough so that you're hitting those key demographics, those key people who are more likely to convert, become patients for you, right?
So let's talk tips. What can people do right now to improve their ad strategies and to get more of a return on investment?
We've kind of hinted at it already. One of the case studies hinted at it. Kind of diversifying your strategy, right? This isn't Meta's going to solve all your problems. It's not Google's going to solve all your problems. It depends on your circumstances, depends on what you're looking for, obviously. But you want to kind of have a mix and match strategy. You're going to run some stuff on Meta. You're going to run stuff on Google. You want to diversify the ad strategy, right?
Sure. Like any portfolio is best when it's diversified.
Exactly.
And also following, again, them throughout that lead journey. You're going to have different ads for different types of things to carry them all the way through to starting. And I think testing as well is really important, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, you don't know when you start out what's going to work best. If we're going to follow suit of these AI optimization, performance max campaigns, or what Meta has been able to do with AI, that's completely test driven.
Yeah.
So I think that we need to be able to do that as well and be flexible with experimenting and then adapting your plan to follow what's working best.
Absolutely. Testing is just really in anything, but especially with ads, it's crucial. If you're open to testing new ideas, you can see if those new ideas work better than old ones, right? And that can open up new avenues, new strategies, new ways of doing advertising, which is really cool way to do it. You can be at the forefront of something new. But you also want to test what you're currently doing if you've been doing it a long time to see if it's as effective as when it started, to see if you could make adjustments to improve that, right? So testing definitely is a crucial step.
Okay. And then what about the AI tools? Use them? Don't use them? What do you think?
I think it kind of goes hand in hand with testing, right? You want to try them out. You want to see what works for you, what helps for you. For a good example, Meta's kind of auto placement where they decide where things go. Sometimes it does, for whatever reasons, it doesn't work as well, right? We'll have, say, someone was wanting social ads, but Meta decided those ads weren't working well on Instagram or Facebook, so they only do that in an audience network. Well, we don't want that, right? We want to hit those social platforms, so then you've got to kind of adjust, go with how Meta is working with your ads, kind of make those adjustments. So it's good to try, good to see if it's working well for you, but if it's not working well, adjust.
Okay, and then in terms of, at least I know on Google, funnily enough, you can kind of, in a way, copy your competition, because whatever they're doing in terms of search, if they're getting a lot of success, you're going to get success doing that too. That's kind of the way SEO works in general.
Yeah.
But how is that on Meta?
I would recommend steering away from copying your competition. There's some things certainly you can copy, right? There's like some things that are basic. If you're an orthodontics doing a sale on braces or on Invisalign or on anything, okay, everyone does sales, that's fine. But you don't want to copy exactly what your competitors are doing, right? Mm-hmm. If you're in your area, you're seeing ads pop up for one of your competing practices and they're doing 1,000 off braces, you're like, oh, they're doing 1,000 off braces, I should too. That doesn't really separate you from them at all. It doesn't really speak to your brand. It doesn't make you stand out from that competition. So I wouldn't recommend doing something like that.
Right. And especially when the goal on those platforms is to stand out.
Exactly. You're trying to stand out, so copying others doesn't make as much sense. You got to remember, you're your own brand. Just because your competitor is doing it doesn't mean you need to. You can get ideas from them, certainly. It's not a bad idea to look, see what they're doing, and get ideas from them, but straight up copying them isn't a great idea.
Makes sense. That makes sense. Okay, so at the end of the day, you need to diversify your ad portfolio. You need to be testing. Mm-hmm. Try out the AI resources. And if you're on Google, it's okay to kind of like pay attention to your competitors and make that strategy work for yourself. But if you're on Meta, be creative, be different, stand out.
Exactly.
I think this was a really interesting conversation. I mean, I think this is a very important topic for so many local businesses who are just starting out with ads or who have maybe even done it for a long time. It changes all the time. Yeah. So thank you so much for being on today. And tune back in with us next time. We are always here talking about some really fun topics. And let us know if you have any questions in the comments.